Good.
Stress day.
It is. Okay, so official. Welcome to the AHEPP webinar for December. The December webinar, we always try to do an overview of the AHEPP annual conference. So that's what we're going to be doing today. If you have any input, what? Oh, I do this every time. So this is something that happened actually at the conference as well. As I introed the conference, I just started and introed, and Keith also again said, "And who are you?" in front of the entire audience. I do have a tendency to forget to introduce myself. So hi, I'm Christy Sanger. I am one of the co-directors of the Association of Healthcare Emergency Preparedness Professionals. I do a lot of the organizing of the conference, so I try to do a lot of juggling. And for those of you that were there at the conference, you mostly, if you saw me, I was walking really fast down the hallway, or possibly running at times. So that's what I do. Keith is here with me.
I'm Keith Hansen. I'm the other co-director of the Association of Healthcare Emergency Preparedness Professionals, and welcome to this. This is a really informal, fun presentation that we like to do. We like to get other people involved. Kevin's going to jump in here and let us know a little bit about what he thought and what he remembered from the conference. And we're also looking to hear from the rest of you. We have one other person in the room who's over in the corner hiding, another staff member for AHEPP, and she doesn't have to show her face. Just stick your hand in here and wave.
Yes, she does.
Oh, does she? Okay,
Say
there
hi.
we go. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Hansen. I do a lot of help with preparing for the conference and with Christy and Keith's schedules throughout the year, taking things off their plate when I can.
Which we appreciate immensely. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to move ahead on my slide, maybe. Why? There it is. Okay, so this was what you saw when you walked into the conference in November when we did this. The conference was November 4th through the 6th. It was in Orlando at the Hilton in Altamont Springs, which I had never been there. Get off the airport and see all things Disney because you're in Florida, so that's always exciting. But that's where we were this year. A couple of things about the AHEPP conference in general. If you've not been, one of the things that we try very hard to do is obviously get quality speakers that are relevant to your healthcare emergency preparedness world and your needs. We try to meet your needs and what you need for education to the best of our ability. We plan the conference with a planning committee that is representative of small hospitals, large hospitals, long-term care, people that work in the government. Keith and I are involved. So yeah, we have quite a diverse group of people that help plan the conference. Kevin was one of those people. So we try very hard to make it relevant to everybody that comes. The other thing that is kind of my passion is to ensure that everybody that comes to the conference has a voice. We want to make sure that the networking within the conference the networking opportunities are strong and highly available. And so everything that we do within the conference, we have networking in mind, and we want to make sure that those connections that you need to actually respond to a disaster are there for you. And as most of you know, within emergency preparedness and emergency response, 90% of it is who you know and 10% of it is what you know. So we try to really emphasize the opportunity to meet people that can help during an event. Did you have anything to add to the general of, I better try to not use my other arrow, I'm gonna use this one. A big thank you to our exhibitors that were there this year and every year. We have we have some great support through these people. Yes, they come, they show you their products, they try to, their end goal, of course, is to try to sell what they have, to make sure that they can keep making a profit. But one of the other things that really helps us is that they pay a much higher fee than an average attendee, and that helps support our conference. So we really appreciate all of these vendors that come, and they not really surprisingly, but they have a lot to teach us as well. They put a lot of research and they put a lot of energy into making sure that their product meets the needs of whatever it is that they are trying to accomplish. And so, I think we have things to learn from them as well. But these are all the people that were there. Keith is back here chuckling because he has a funny story.
This is our fifth. This is our fifth AHEPP conference,
yes.
And probably by far the weirdest AHEPP conference we've ever. Am I getting seen some head nods?
There was some weird.
We just had bizarre stuff happen, and the slide comes up, and so we were, of course, Anna and Christy were running around. I was probably, I don't know, drunk in a corner or having coffee or something. But Kevin, don't nod. So anyway, we come back and our vendors are saying, oh, that videographer, that's kind of a cool idea. And we look at each other and none of us have hired a videographer.
No.
So we talked to the hotel staff and the hotel has not hired a videographer. So this someone was running around to the vendors, having them record their pitch for them, and then walking on to another vendor and asking them to record and none of us know who this person was. We don't know where they went. We don't know what they did with this information. We got vendors sitting at their table saying, holy crap, we thought they were with you. We thought AHEPP was doing this cool thing. We probably should have taken credit, but we didn't. We have no idea who this person was. And this was probably the second weirdest thing that happened to us at the conference.
And ironically, when I went to the hotel, the representative from the hotel to ask them, do you have somebody that would come and video us, or do you have any idea who this might be? And he adamantly said, oh no, we keep all of your information really secret. We would never tell anybody that you are here. And I in turn responded, I didn't know that was necessary. I didn't know it needed to be a secret and that we couldn't tell people we were here. And most of the time we are trying to tell everyone we're here. So that was a weird experience.
So we have some, if you're on YouTube and you see one of these vendors has a nice little video, you're welcome.
And let us know where you find that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so moving on. Are we going to get to the first weirdest thing that happened?
Eventually.
Okay.
You think?
I don't.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
I can't really.
We can just leave it hanging. We'll tell you next year.
Really remember. All right, so we began our conference with the Deputy Assistant Secretary and Director of ASPR's Office of Emergency Management and Medical Operations, so ASPR, and then the Senior Advisors, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response. Yeah, that's a mouthful. So this is who opened the conference for us, talking about strengthening healthcare preparedness and exploring opportunities for cross-sector investment. This is a project that ASPR is working on and in progress, and we wanted to hear more. And so between these two, and then we had a second piece of this session that included some more. Do I have that slide in there? Maybe. Oh, no, took that out. So we had a second piece of this session also that included some more people, to include Jack Heerman and Anna, what was the other one? Putting you on the spot.
From the Joint Commission.
No, she wasn't there.
She just didn't show up. She was invited and was supposed. We were
She
supposed to.
well, she
yeah,
had a family emergency.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so they came and discussed some of the project. It seemed to me like some of the project is still in the beginning phases. Did you get that impression, Keith?
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with this, the ASPR, when the ASPR came in, he did something that I actually kind of like that this happened. He kind of looked around and said, okay, here where I think we have gaps. For example, one of them is DMAT, the NDMS project. He said, I don't think we have enough DMAT teams. At one time, we had every single DMAT team deployed. And if anything else would have happened, we wouldn't have had any other additional DMAT teams to deploy. So he said, okay, we need to build more DMAT teams. Another thing he said is, these DMAT teams are great in terms of responding to hurricane, tornado, flood. They're very trauma oriented. What happens if a small hospital has a number of patients that have infectious disease of some kind, whether that's, SARS, Ebola, influenza, novel influenza, whatever that is. So he's providing them training on dealing with communicable and not communicable infectious diseases. So anyway, the crux of that is what he did was he walked in and said, okay, here are the gaps, and here's some cash, and we're going to see if we can fill them. One of the things he did was he funded these regional disaster health response systems. There were two funded, one at Mass General in Boston and one at University of Nebraska Medical Center, the Nebraska Medicine at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. And they were responsible for looking at things like where are our current gaps in surge. So I like that he came in and said, here's some gaps. Let's figure out how to plug them. I would probably, not necessarily agree with every way he's decided to do that, but I'm being politically correct because this is being recorded. So anyway, there's kind of three phases to this, and one is that NDMS side over on the left, and then what he's doing now is he's also funded this year that National Disaster Pediatric Initiative. He's funded two other organizations in the United States to do kind of a similar process with peds. And if he follows suit, he'll probably do something similar with trauma. He'll do something with radiation. So anyway, he's kind of got this pattern of funding these kind of discovery projects to hopefully move things forward. The other thing that struck me about this, and this has never really been explicitly stated, and if you guys have differing opinions or agree, let me know. That third category, and this is a slide that they brought, by the way. This is the ASPR slide. This is nothing we put together. That regional disaster health response system, that regional coordination under the words priority 3, that appears to be a strong theme with the ASPR. I don't know exactly what that means. I know the phase 2 of that regional disaster health response system is to take what Boston and Nebraska Medicine found and expand that to their federal region. So right now, I know they're doing training assessments in those federal regions and what's available and what's being done and who's doing it and how do we leverage that and is this repetitive and blah blah blah, all that shtick. So there seems to be a little more emphasis on those federal regions than in terms of being a response entity. So I don't know where that's going. I mean, I really don't. But in terms of kind of takeaways from this conference, this is not the first time I've seen this. This is a consistent message, it appears, from the ASPR. And it's whether you think that's a good idea or not, that seems to be a direction where things are going. These federal regions are going to have, I think, a little more involvement in healthcare disaster response. Feel free to disagree and discuss.
And to add another weirdness statement into this, Dr. Cadlick was scheduled to present this presentation until about 3 days before the conference. So
Yeah.
that was a surprise.
Yeah.
So anyway, I move on. Okay. Did anybody have anything? We really do want to make sure that this is an interactive conversation, and we will have more, probably more presentations that you're going to probably want to interact in and give us your opinions. Can I ask a quick question? And I'm not sure how this works on this Zoom software, so I don't know if there's a way for us to, if we do more in the more tab, can we raise our hand? Can we do a, is there a, no,
Let's see.
maybe not. You don't know how to use my computer. Anyway, I was hoping to find out how many of you that are on the line were actually there. So
Kevin.
Kevin, I can see you raising your hand. Thank you very much.
That's a kind of low-tech / high-tech way of raising your hand. I'm not sure how to feel about that.
Yeah, comment. There's a good dude in the chat. If there were some of you there, I'm just trying to kind of get a handle on how many of you were there and weren't there. Looks like there was quite a few that were there.
Good.
Great. So as you listen to this, feel free to jump in or chime in. You should have the ability to unmute your microphone. I think I did mute everybody in the beginning just so that we could get everybody gathered. But if you were there and have opinions, even if they're differing opinions, we want to hear them.
Please.
So the next session of the day on day 1 was.
And by the way, we're not going to go through every session for 10 minutes. Just don't
we're
freak
not.
out on us.
Yeah, please don't hit end meeting yet. But anyway, so the second presentation on day 1 is kind of one of my passions, and it is the Collaborate with Colleagues session. And what we tried to do here is try to get right off from the beginning of the conference, everybody to kind of make a new friend and start getting to know people that they don't know yet. So we made a concerted effort, just like we do every year, to kind of mix people up. And because when you go to a conference, you have a tendency to first sit down with the people that you know, and you don't tend to start with new people. So mixed people up by asking people to self-assign what their interests were, and had every person there go into a group that was, here's a couple of them on the pictures. This one is armed intruder, and cybersecurity was one of the topics. There was business continuity. There was all kinds of different topics available. And we asked people to kind of figure out what are some of the top challenges within this realm, and then brainstorm solutions. And we had everybody write them down on the posters, on the poster pages that we supplied for them, and then had them put them on the wall so that we could take the time to walk around the room and review them at our leisure throughout the rest of the couple of days.
So there were kind of 2 questions with this, and one was, as you can kind of tell from the posters that are up there. And by the way, for those of you that attended, Anna, who's hiding off in the corner over here, is trying to transcribe those. And there are some. The photographer for this was apparently subpar, and that was me. So the pictures are okay, but apparently some of them are fuzzy, and as you can see, that pink one's kind of hard to read. So anyway, Anna has the yeoman's work of trying to transcribe those. So when we get those transcribed, we'll send those out to the participants so they can see what those products are.
And for the record, I don't think anybody's going to have their name attached to it, because as you can see, this is what we see of the name. We did have everybody sign their sheets as to which ones they did, but we won't be able to capture that information.
So there are 2 big questions we asked in this, and as Christy said before, this is one of the ways we try to actually integrate and purposefully integrate collaboration. And this is what, not just, oh, talk to somebody over lunch. We actually kind of force people to talk in this session with each other. And there are two questions. One, what are the issues? And two, are there potential solutions? So you can see on that cybersecurity one, there's some novel kind of solutions that are actually readily be able to implement. Descriptive email subject lines in terms of identifying whether things are spam or phishing or things like that. Every time I see an email that says hi, or
Yeah.
you know, some need to talk, or something really generic like that, it makes me wonder if it's phishing. So I think that was the point of this: is are there people who are dealing with cybersecurity out there that have some experience and are able to say, here are some easy, low-hanging fruit that we can do to help solve some of these problems? And then those are several things that I'd never thought about. So that's kind of the point of that session this year, is to come up with those types of items. Not only identify problems, which we all are able to do readily, but what are some potential solutions?
And Kevin, I'm going to put you on the spot at this point, because I know that you you love that. Because I know you kind of grabbed me after that session and said, you know, that was really fun, that was really good, but it needed more time. Can you elaborate? I mean, and you also mentioned something about the fact, and I'm hoping I'm not mixing you up with someone else, but you mentioned something about, you know, we should probably keep doing this and doing something similar, but maybe we need more time, or so thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I thought it was a great activity. You know, I think some people might sort of sigh when they hear forced networking, but I think this was useful in that it was sort of ops driven, in that let's not just theorize at a very high level, like what would we do, you know, and sort of wax and philosophically back and forth, but really let's get down to brass tacks. And I think once people sort of started to warm to it and get into it, then we started to run out of time, because there were lots of problems identified, and then, oh, wait, let's go back and find solutions for all of them. So I think it was good, and I definitely think it's something we should continue in the future, but that would be my one thought, that we need to incorporate the idea that people might actually want to do this, and it's not like a punishment.
True.
That's a good point. Okay, so I undersold it. You're absolutely right. That's a good point. No, but that's great. And again, that's great feedback, Kevin. We really love to hear that stuff. You're right. Once people get warmed up, they were much more communicative. But yeah, it's one of those.
People were really hesitant to even go to a table, like because we had given them a break, and then when they started kind of wandering back in, nobody really was. They were a little hesitant and shy about it, but. I will say that as I start seeing, and like Keith said, this is our 5th year, I start seeing repeat attendees, people that have come every year. I think people are starting to get used to this. Like, oh, Christy's got this networking thing going here. We're gonna have to talk to each other. and it's not. I think it's becoming less of a timid scenario, less of a I don't really want to do this scenario, and people are starting to get the hang of it and realize that this is really meant to be fun and engaging and helpful. And the thing I love about doing this more than anything is that once we do it, everybody is talking, and we have more questions with the sessions, we have more interaction with the sessions, just in general for the rest of the conference. We had John Hick here this year talking about radiation. Many of you, or some of you, may have actually been to the presentation that we did via webinar on this same topic. As always, riveting and interesting regarding all of the things that all the information he has. You can always tell that John Hick, when he speaks, he knows what he's talking about. So he did bring up radiation and the unique challenges of radiation, things that as healthcare workers and healthcare preparedness, we need to be aware of, which are listed in front of you. I don't need to read those, but it was one of those things that, you know, it was kind of eye-opening, especially when he said, you know, we're poorly exercising this issue in general, and you know, that's kind of our job, right? That's our gig. So one of the things that I took out of that was we needed to do some more training and exercising.
One thing that I took out of that too was that what he's talking about, the you know, we don't exercise that very well, we're not doing a lot of training. I think there's a big difference between those areas of the country, and I'm sure some of you are in these areas, that have a nuclear power plant and those that don't. I mean, we have two, well, we have one in Nebraska now, one's actually being decommissioned, but those areas do a whole lot more in terms of those community reception centers, in terms of involvement with public health and healthcare and things like that than the rest of the state. So that really pointed out to me that, you know, the answers are out there. I mean, the folks that don't have nuclear power plants may be looking for answers, but those with power plants have a lot of them. So it's not necessarily a question of we need to find the answers. To me, it seems like more of an issue of we need to find the people that already do have the answers, because they do.
Yeah, another networking opportunity.
Yeah.
These were some of the gaps that he stated within his presentation. Again, if you're looking for more information and weren't able to attend this conference and want more information on Dr. Hicks' radiation, Ready for Radiation, we actually have this up on our recorded webinars website. So if all you have to do is make sure that you're logged in with your member number, and all of those recorded webinars are going to be under the member tab, and you just click on it and it goes straight to the YouTube recording of it. And so basically that webinar recording page has every single webinar that we've done, and we do them about once a month, and have been doing them for 5 years. So there's a large, you know, opportunity for education on those recordings if you're looking for a specific topic, but this one is in there. I think we've already gone through this.
Okay.
Next presentation was there's more than one way to emergency manage the need for professional diversity among healthcare emergency managers. Holy cow, I put all of these speakers, the presenters' names in here, and
Click again.
they're gone.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Huh. Okay. Well, this was by Don Boyce and
Our illustrious
Kevin Diggin. And so I'm going to let you talk, and then I'm going to, in the meantime, grab my laptop and find out where that information is while you talk. So I am paying attention, just multitasking. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'll summarize what we talked about. So the representatives from the Mount Sinai Health System here in New York, led by our Vice President Don Boyce, wanted to call to attention to our colleagues that there's a burgeoning field that's really specific to healthcare emergency preparedness that's evolved from when EM first started as a recognized field. You know, if you go back to the late 70s with Fire Scope and sort of how California dealt with wildfires all the way back through history, you know, it's been something that's been handled by a particular group of people, military, first responders, and that's all well and good. But as time has evolved, you know, as we're looking at healthcare specifically, there's new regulations from Joint Commission and CMS, and there are new challenges that we're facing and fighting every single day, and that we can't keep using the tried and true old approach to fit our current and future problems. You know, we're not doing that in our day-to-day work when we're looking at our HVAs and dealing with our own risk assessments and how we're dealing with mitigation and preparedness. So why are we going to be bringing our most important resource, our staffing, from an old mindset? You know, we need to be adapting to bringing multiple perspectives to the table to find better solutions, right? Having more than just a retired fire chief or someone who's used to dealing with the response piece of emergency management is great, but it's not enough to deal with all of the other components that are now in the rich field of emergency management, right? There's more than just response. We're needing to look at the other phases of the disaster life cycle, and we need to bring in people who have those approaches, whether they're from academia, whether they're from government, maybe they're healthcare administrators who are just really savvy with operations. Maybe they're people who have worked in other industries with transferable skills. We see a lot of that cross-industry utilization in healthcare. If you look at quality improvement, the Toyota Lean methodology, that came from the auto industry, and it's used in healthcare to make us better, to make us safer, for keeping our patients safer. So there's lots of precedent in utilizing different approaches, and we're sort of sending out a call to arms to all of our colleagues that, we need to be thinking about future problems and use future solutions now, rather than just leaning back on the comfortable and what we're used to, which is, an outdated thought process. I think that's probably a good 100-second synopsis.
The thing I really loved about, two things I loved about this presentation. One was the content, and the way Kevin describes that is, I thought it was a really well spent 50 minutes and really well put together. The other thing I really like about this presentation is that while we need to have lots of sessions on lessons learned, how did you evacuate, what worked and what didn't, what were the issues around this biological event in terms of patient safety and staff, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I shouldn't say blah, 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 but the lessons learned from these events. What I loved about this session was this is, I think, kind of next level stuff for the profession. Profession of emergency managers in healthcare, and this, in my mind, is professional development content. These are issues that I think our industry needs to wrestle with and needs to get better at. And I thought, and not to just suck up to Kevin because he's on the screen, but I thought this was a really well put together and really well thought out topic for our people. I mean, this is, we're a growing and professionalizing, if that's the appropriate word, workforce, and we're trying to elevate. This should not be just other duties as assigned anymore. These are the types of things that we need to really get good at in order to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that your slide here says it all, Kevin, and I think it was a well placed slide in your presentation, but. I mean, we all have something to learn, and we all, can learn things from other professionals and make this field better. So that was that presentation. Did anybody else have any? I mean, we have actually one of the presenters online. So if anybody have any questions for Kevin regarding his presentation, be it you were there and you have additional questions, or you weren't there and have questions, feel free to speak up. Moving on. Kevin.
I'm sorry. This is really informal. Kevin and I met, what was that, a year ago? I was not even, I don't think. It was
back in March.
Yeah, it was back in March. For some reason, Kevin stopped me at this other conference, and we got to sit down and have coffee for about an hour and chat. And it's been one of those networking things that we hate to do, but has just been golden. It's been a fantastic relationship. Sorry, I'm kissing Kevin's butt again, and I really have no need to. I don't know why I do it. I just
giving some love.
There's no reason.
Feelings are mutual, Keith.
Oh, funny. Um, okay, so I'm gonna just, let you guys all absorb all the love there that's going on and move on to the next presentation that was general session. And really what we're doing right here is highlighting the general sessions that we have. In between all of these general sessions, we had breakouts and we had 3 sessions going at one time. You could choose whichever one you wanted to go to. Various topics, you could decide which one fit your needs the best. The ones that are general sessions, our planning committee basically chose those to be general sessions because we thought everybody that's at the conference either will want to know them, or if they don't want to know this information yet, they should anyway. So that's kind of how we selected the general sessions. We looked at some of the descriptions of these presentations, and this was another one. The previous one we talked about with Kevin was also one, but this was another one. Emergency preparedness education, does it make sense? This was done by Julie Bolson, who is an emergency preparedness director at a hospital, and then Eric Christensen, which I think I was going to grab his title, but I didn't. But he's a health economist for the University of Minnesota. So for many of those, and myself included, I didn't know what a health economist was. I didn't know that that was a profession in existence, honestly. And I thought this presentation was really eye-opening. We heard from him about what the probability of having an event was for hospitals, and then went on to discuss what kind of gains that could be made by reducing the risk and being more prepared. And so it was just really eye-opening to me to see numbers put to preparedness. And I think that, if we can further elaborate on this process, if we could really put some more cost benefit even than this in the profession, I think that there would be more support. We'd have more support from our leaders. We'd have more support from our federal partners. We'd have more support from, everybody involved if we could not only show, yes, the disasters are coming, that's what we hear in presentations for the most part, but we don't often hear what that means, what that really means in money, and how much that is going to cost your business, and how much that's going to tax everybody involved. And so I just thought that presentation was very eye-opening, and so eye-opening, in fact, that this is another one that we actually asked Julie and Eric to come back and do the January webinar. So if you heard it the first time and want to hear it again, which is for myself, I felt like I could hear that presentation 4 times at least and get something new out of it each time, because there was just so much information and I was trying to absorb. So we definitely wanted to try to get this in front of some more people. So if this is something that interests you, that you didn't get to see it the first time, or if you want to see it a second time, or if you have 3 friends that you want to sit next to you by your computer while you watch it next time, it's going to be the January webinar, and it's scheduled, so you can just go ahead and get registered for that one.
Part of what Julie and Eric did was they actually implemented a training program within a healthcare system, and then did an assessment of what's on this slide, which is the quantifiable gains. The national statistic in terms of RN turnover is every time you turn over an RN and have to hire somebody, it costs you an extra 68%. It costs you 68% of that RN salary to retrain, onboard, all of that stuff. So what they found was, and they'll talk about this more in the webinar and give a lot more detail on this, and kind of the crux of it is the training program helped them with retention, which reduces turnover. So, and other things, and other things in addition to turnover. So it's a fascinating little research project that they really did a nice job of, okay, why do we do this? And this is the type of information that we can take back to our organization and say, see, look at this. I love this type of stuff.
Yep. You will see, I know for a fact that you're going to see some more information like this at the 2020 conference, because we're already making arrangements to have similar topics, and we're working on that. Another presentation that we had, that was a general session that we wanted this to be a general session, less for the reason that everybody needed to know that this was here, but more so that we wanted the ability to have everybody brainstorm and come up with ideas on how this could be used in the disaster response capacity. So how many years ago? A couple of years ago, I met Matt McQuiston, who's listed here as one of the presenters. They happen to be in AHEPP in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is my hometown. And I came across Matt at a different meeting that I was at, and he said, well, you know, we've got this telemedicine stuff. We don't do emergencies, we don't do disaster or anything, but the technology is pretty cool. You might want to come, you know, have a tour and come take a look. And so I came and took a look at their facility and was touring. And I heard him say at least 10 times within the tour 2 years ago, well, we don't do disasters. We don't do anything like that. I know that's, you know, that's not our world. You do disasters. We don't do that. And as I was watching him describe everything he was doing, I kept saying, you do disasters. You just handled that. And that could have been much bigger. It could have been much worse. It was something that you handled remotely. You do disasters. You do disaster response. You just don't realize it. I don't know how many of you caught the fact that when I had this conversation, it was 2 years ago. It took 2 years of back and forth to convince them that yes, they do disasters. And one of the big changing points was that for them was the fact that 5G, because every time I said you should get more involved in disasters, you should be there to help with the emergency response, telemedically, you know, from afar. He would say, well, you have to have a landline. We have to have those solid lines that have been dug and connected. I'm talking really poor IT speak right now, but he said it needed to be a hard connection. And so in an emergency, you don't know where the disaster is going to hit. He's like, so, you know, we're out. We don't have lines to everywhere. We only have lines to, what did he say? Like 85 hospitals from, you know, Boston to California. So, but we don't know where the disaster is going to hit. So we don't have those hard lines. And then 5G came along, and all of a sudden their comfort level with the fact that they thought they could rely on a connection enough that if you are placing a tube in somebody's throat or in somebody's chest, and you are talking someone through someone to do that, the connection isn't going to just crash in the middle of the procedure, and all of a sudden you're going to leave the person that is there in person not knowing what to do next with a tube halfway through somebody's, you know, mouth into, you know, halfway into their lungs, but halfway not. I mean, I get why they didn't want to get involved in anything disaster if there wasn't a true way to rely on those lines. So, again, they didn't really claim that they did a whole lot of disaster response, and yet every time they told a story, it was usually about trying to help somebody that was within a setting that it was kind of out of their grasp. They were overtaxed. They didn't have enough staff there. There was, you know, snowstorms that hit and people couldn't get to work. They had to get arranged to get snowmobile transport for a pregnant woman. I mean, there were all kinds of things that were so similar to disaster that really one of the outcomes that was my goal in booking this presentation was to get the entire field of disaster preparedness and response thinking about what could we do with this type of technology, because I think it's underutilized so far. So it was, you know, they have cool technology. If anybody is ever in South Dakota, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or planning to go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, either give Matt a call, or if you can't find his number, call me. I'll even meet you up there. Go check out that tour their facility. It's really cool. And I see the comment from Denise in here that says Avera in South Dakota is now the hotline portal for crisis counseling program for flooding in South Dakota right now. So they don't
but they don't do disasters.
They don't do disasters, but there they are. So just really, really cool stuff that's going on up there in little hometown South Dakota. Anyway, moving on, and I know we're getting kind of short on time, and one of the things I really wanted to do was give us some time to discuss, you know, further what you guys that went wanted to change about the conference, what you want to add to the next conference. So, and then I'm going to open it up because one of the necessary evils that happens in the conferences every year is that Keith and I are usually putting out some kind of fire at any given moment. And during the breakout sessions is usually when we have to try to fix this, do that, help somebody with this, talk to somebody about that. And essentially that means that all of these great breakout sessions that the planning committee puts into the program and we can't wait to see end up things that we are not able to sit through. We end up not being able to see all these presentations. Here's a list of some of them. Here's a list of some more of them. Did it go? No.
Yeah.
It did.
It did.
Oh, so it moved. Oh, okay. Yeah. So here's some more of them. Here's some more of them. We had a ton of breakouts within and lots of opportunity to find your interest within the conference. And I can honestly say I saw pieces of some of them, but didn't see a full breakout session of any of them. So if there's anything that stands out to you as an attendee, that you think, that you think we should make sure to highlight, because really the purpose of this webinar is not to toot our own horn or advertise for the conference. It is to touch base with those of you that hadn't been able to make it, or those of you that were there but didn't get to see all of these sessions that you wanted to see, and try to kind of share the information. So that's really what we want to do. Let's see, George, it looks like you said, are you going to cover the resilience scorecard, the scorecard tool that was introduced and will be ready on the AHEPP page? That was Angela Devlin's presentation, which is actually, this is listed as Kristen Stevens, but Angela Devlin filled in for Kristen Stevens. Oh, this was another weird thing that happened. Kristen ended up with dengue. And she sent me an email, and it was on Halloween, and the conference was the very next week. And she sent me an email and said, I hate to do this to you, but I have dengue and I can't make it to the conference and I'm on the agenda. And I replied and said, is this a Halloween joke? Nobody gets dengue. I have since been corrected, and many people get dengue. and that's what happened with her. Again, another weird thing that ended up happening with the 2019 conference.
And she's doing well now.
Yes, she is.
Anybody's wondering.
But back to Angela's presentation. Yes, we are, when it is ready, and I don't know when that's going to be. So when it is ready, we will have it on the AHEPP page. We also plan to dedicate at least an hour. I think we're actually trying to dedicate even more time for Angela Devlin to talk about that resilience scorecard. And George, I agree with you. It's really cool. And I was able to be lucky enough to be part of a small panel of subject matter experts that was allowed to get together in New York City in October and talk about this resilience scorecard tool. So it's going to be really helpful, and I know that it's going to be something that everybody's interested in. So we are actually putting that together to be a general session next year, and we hope to not only have her describe it and show it to us, but also develop something within the presentation to allow us to use it and practice with it, and actually have some hands-on opportunity to try to work with it. Any other thoughts, questions, comments about breakout sessions for those of you that were there, or those of you that weren't there? If you have a question about a certain one that you want somebody to tell you about.
While you're thinking, I want you to just remember that we're really serious about taking input and feedback about what the conference is and how we do it and what people want to know. If you're like me anyway, been in this world for a while now, and it's really interesting to me. I really have to remind myself that not everybody has been in this world for a long time. And that while I look at an agenda and may think, oh, do we need to talk about that again? The answer is yes. There are people that have not heard that yet. At the same time, there are those of us that have been in this for a while. And one of the conversations that Christy and I are having and that we're going to be having with the education committee is, and we've started this a little bit already, is what is that, if let's say, what's on the screen here? Regional a mobile infectious disease go team. So let's say that's kind of a 101 level presentation. It's a go team. It's about infectious disease. That's a kind of novel connection there. But there's probably a lot of information already out there, and this is a nice synopsis that people might want to hear. What does 201 look like? What does that next level of information or training look like? Is that training? Is that skill building? What is that? So we're actually having conversations about, we need the 101 sessions. We want those stories and those lessons learned from people in our world about what they did and how it went, and did it go well, and what would they do differently, so we can learn from that. But then what other types of information do we have? One of our goals is to advance this profession. So what do people need to be able to do that? Like I said before with Kevin's presentation, that's a great example of that. That's really a professional development, strategic thought type of session that I really love. And so what else do we need in those areas? Think about that. Stick that in the back of your head and email us, or let us know, or oh, don't tweet. I won't see that. Email us, and we'll absolutely respond to that.
Another thing that if you, as we're still thinking, again, feel free to butt in and give us your questions or your comments and feedback. But one thing I did want to ask, or I had asked for Kevin to do, is kind of give us a synopsis of, what'd you think? What stood out to you? What was your favorite part of the conference? Or, and you can't say the food. I mean, everybody usually says the bacon, but was there anything that you thought that was, I don't know, helpful?
Yeah, helpful. I hope so.
I hope so.
More than one. Kevin
go.
Was.
Yeah, you, Kevin.
Sure, me, Kevin. One thing I really enjoy about this conference is that, I like the size of it, and that you're able to actually truly network. And I think you can truly network because the sessions that are selected lend themselves to being operationally focused. Many of them have a product that can be shared with others to use, modify, adapt to fit their own needs. They may not, but there's something tangible with many of these presentations that could be shared, right? And I think one of the things that we all end up doing is we all create our own tools. So we're all spending the same amount of energy creating. And I think this conference allows us to share some of those best practices, and best practice ideas are really great, but best practice tools are even better because it takes a lot of the energy from teams of 1 or 0.5 FTE or whatever it is to keep moving forward and being productive off the shoulders of others who've already sort of taken that journey to create. Because a lot of what we're doing isn't that different from one place to another. Size of the institution might change, and what your actual vulnerabilities from, depending on your geography or, what services you offer might change. But a lot of the things that we need to do to help keep people safe have already been created. We just have to be a little more open with sharing. And I think this conference provides an opportunity for us to do that. So if you have an idea, that's great, because the size of the conference, people feel comfortable coming to talk to you, but you can also give them something that they can walk away with to bring back to their institution to say, hey, I got this great idea from Wisconsin. They have this really awesome tool. I think we can modify to fit our needs. So I think if we continue to bring in speakers that have ideas, but also if they have something they can share that others can then implement at their own institutions, that's really beneficial.
Awesome. And a super awesome segue, because my next slide is talking about, that was not even planned, Kevin. So AHEPP 2020 is October 26th through the 28th. It's a little earlier in the year than we usually have it. Usually we've been in November, but this was the week that worked. And it's in San Antonio, Texas. It is in a hotel that's very close, within walking distance to the Riverwalk. So there will be sights to see, and the program will, I'm sure, be nothing short of awesome, just like all the rest of the years. We do not have the presentation abstract submission sites open yet, but they are under construction currently, and I am hoping to have them. If they aren't open before Christmas, they will be open right after. So
talk about what's different about
it. Yeah. So some of the new presentation abstract requests that we have in line are, we have of course our general and breakout session opportunities like we always have. We also have decided to add quick hits as an opportunity. So the quick hits, and I know other conferences do quick hits as well, but the way that we are organizing our quick hits is that they're going to be shared with one other person. So it'll be 20-minute presentations. All of our breakouts are 50 minutes. So it'll be 2 20-minute presentations. We'll have the audience hold their questions until the end, and then there'll be 10 minutes for questions, Q&A at the end of both presentations. We'll do our best to group those presentations as similarly as possible, or if they, hopefully they highlight one another or something of those types, but really we will give 20 minutes for each speaker. So the motivation behind this is to, of course, allow the listener, the audience, to absorb as many different sessions as possible. But on the flip side, I think in my head, for those people that have done some pretty cool stuff or experienced some things that they feel they have lessons learned from, but don't feel like they could fill an hour's worth of time, or have never really presented in front of a group before and don't feel confident enough to stand in front of a large group and speak for an hour. This gives them an opportunity to kind of jump in, share their information, give them an opportunity to have a new experience and try to do a presentation. So that's a new option. To submit an abstract. The other new option is what Keith had briefly mentioned and referenced earlier, which was the 201 sessions. And we have decided to open those 201 sessions as 2-hour sessions, and we want to allow for, if we are going to do a 201 session, which essentially the 201 means that deeper dive into the information. And I think it's really hard to conceptualize doing a deeper dive into any topic in only an hour. So if there is a topic such as radiation, where Dr. Hick would want to not only share the basics, but get really down deep into, here are the tools that you need to have in your facility. These are the things that you need to have in place. This is the training that you have to do. These are the exercises that you have to organize. This is the frequency. This is how you get support for this program. All of those things in my mind are a deeper dive into the topic and are going to take a little more time. So that's another option of how you can submit an abstract, or one of the abstract submission options is that 201.
This, in the 201 concept for me, this is kind of experimental for us. We're really looking to see how this is going to work. And to Kevin's point earlier, in my mind, some of that is, those tools. That, what are they? Can you bring those with you? Can you let people touch them, use them, take them home? Why are they effective? Why are they effective? What really works about those? So that tool part, I think, is part of the 201. But we'll see what people kind of come up with. I mean, that's part of my ignorance. Is I want bigger, better, more in depth, more useful, more. I don't know what that looks like. So I want you guys to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
You tell us what that looks like and how you can do that, because I'm not even the smartest person in this room, besides the smartest people and within AHEPP. So we're really looking for you guys to let us know how do we do that, and then how do we let our members have that.
Something I heard on the phone yesterday, a little digression, but I was on the phone with a presenter, somebody that presented at a pre-conference, and we didn't even touch on our pre-conference sessions, but every year we do a full day of pre-conference sessions, and those were wonderful as well. But we had a pre-conference session presenter in 2016 at our conference in Las Vegas, and we were on the phone with him yesterday. And we were telling him about this 201 concept, that we've done all the 101 courses. We've done, not all of them, but we've done a lot of the 101 basic information and preparedness at our conference. And I think that there's enough people to support that we need to graduate to 201. And caught me off guard. He said, congratulations that the field has advanced to that. Because in 2016, I don't think we were ready for 201 stuff. And how cool is it that we are now? Mm-hmm. And when he said that, I didn't even realize that that's an accomplishment from the profession itself. It's come a long ways. So Keith just pointed out to me that we are over time. So did anybody that is still on the line, and I see that we've dropped off some people, but anybody that's still on the line that has any comments, questions, chats? I see your introduction, Dave. Nice to meet you. Anybody else have anything else? Since we're already over, I'm not going to wait too long. So thank you guys for your time.
Yes,
I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this, and I hope that you found it helpful for either a decision to come next year or for just informational purposes to help you do your job. Hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar in January. We always do those on the second Wednesday of the month at noon Central Time. Keyword Central Time. Get a lot of questions on that. So
thank you, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks.